I was 15, on my deathbed, hearing last rites, and somehow I lived to tell you this story.
There are moments in life that etch themselves onto your soul, moments so profound they cleave your existence into a before and an after. For me, that moment arrived silently, insidiously, when I was just 15 years old. One minute, I was a typical teenager, full of a boundless energy I barely noticed. The next, I was looking into the eyes of my father shattered in a way I'd never seen before, as a priest stood at the foot of my hospital bed, murmuring words I knew even in my haze were meant for the dying. The sheer raw terror of that moment, the way it stripped away every illusion of invincibility, has stayed with me. It was the whisper of last rites, a final chilling ceremony for a life that was just beginning. I was on my deathbed, and I didn't even know how I got there. Before that day, life felt infinite. I was 15, in the prime of my teenage years, filled with the kind of youthful exuberance that makes you believe you're bulletproof. My days were a whirlwind of school friends and the general pursuits of an energetic kid. I was always in pretty good physical condition, active with a naturally tight abdomen. I mean, you don't really think about your insides when you're that age, do you? You just take for granted that your body will keep doing what it's supposed to do. I had dreams like any teenager. I loved movies and television. I devoured films, lost myself in stories. And even then, there was this tiny, nascent flicker of an idea. Wouldn't it be incredible to be part of that, to create those worlds for other people? There was no warning, no slow build-up to the catastrophe. It wasn't like I had been feeling unwell for days or weeks. One moment, everything was ordinary, and the next, it wasn't. It was the kind of abrupt, brutal interruption that forces you to confront the sheer fragility of existence. I remember the subtle onset of discomfort, which quickly escalated into something far more sinister, something that gnawed at my insides. It was a pain unlike anything I had ever experienced, a deep, pervasive ache that radiated through my core. I tried to ignore it, to tough it out, as kids often do, but it intensified with alarming speed. It wasn't just a stomach ache, it was a profound systemic distress. Looking back, the insidious nature of what was happening inside me was terrifying. My intestines had twisted a condition I later learned was called volvulus, where they literally knot themselves, creating a blockage. And because my abdomen was naturally tight, when I started bleeding internally, my stomach didn't expand. This meant the critical warning sign of distension, that telltale swelling, wasn't there, masking the severity of what was truly unfolding. The internal bleeding was relentless, an invisible hemorrhage silently stealing my life force. Every second more blood was seeping into my body cavity, and no one could see it from the outside. The pain became unbearable, a searing agony that eclipsed everything else. My mind began to fog the world around me, becoming blurry and distant. I was slipping fast. The memory of that turning point, that abrupt shift from health to the precipice of death, is fragmented, punctuated by flashes of searing pain and a growing heavy darkness. I was in and out of consciousness, caught in a terrifying limbo between awareness and oblivion. The details are hazy, like trying to recall a nightmare you woke from moments ago, but the emotional impact is as vivid today as it was then. There was a sense of urgency, of panic, in the voices around me, though I couldn't quite grasp their words. I remember the rush to the hospital, the frantic motion, the flashing lights, the siren's wail echoing in my ears, a soundtrack to my rapidly deteriorating state. Each jolt of the ambulance was a fresh wave of agony. When we finally arrived, the chaos escalated. I was wheeled into an emergency room, a blur of white coats and concerned faces. There was a desperate flurry of activity around me, a cacophony of medical jargon and hushed whispers. Tests were run, questions were asked, but my answers were slurred, my thoughts disjointed. The pain, once a localized horror, now felt like my entire body was on fire, or rather bleeding out from the inside. They knew I was bleeding internally, but the full extent of the damage, the sheer volume of blood I was losing, was still being assessed. It was a race against time, a desperate scramble to pinpoint the source of the hemorrhage before my body simply gave up. The grim reality began to sink in as I heard hushed conversations, medical terms I didn't fully understand, but whose somber tones conveyed a profound gravity. The twisted intestines, the internal bleeding, it was far worse than anyone initially suspected. I was slipping away, losing a part of myself with every passing minute. 50% of my blood, they later told me, was gone. Half of what kept me alive had drained away into my own body, an insidious thief in the night. I was on my deathbed, clinging to life by the thinnest thread, barely aware of the precipice I stood upon. The exhaustion was overwhelming, a heavy blanket pulling me down into a dark, welcoming void. I just wanted the pain to stop to find some peace in the darkness. And then came the moment that truly haunts me, the image seared into my memory despite the haze of my delirium. I remember waking, or perhaps just floating closer to consciousness, and seeing him, my father, the strongest man I knew. The rock who was raising 5 kids on his own was standing there, his face contorted, tears streaming down his cheeks. It was only 1 or 2 times I had ever seen my dad cry, and to see him so utterly broken, so weak, in that moment was more terrifying than anything I was physically experiencing. His grief was a palpable presence in the sterile room, a silent scream of despair. And then, at the very end of my bed, a priest. He was murmuring words, softly, solemnly, words I recognized from movies, from stories, words about last rites. They were talking about giving me my last rites, preparing me for the end. It sounds so surreal, now looking back. I was 15, and they were preparing me to die. The gravity of it, even through the fog of my pain and fading consciousness, was immense. This wasn't just a bad sickness. This was goodbye. But then a flicker of light, in the darkness a name that will forever be etched in my heart, Sandy. She was my nurse, a calm, steady presence in the storm. I remember her face, compassionate and determined. She was the one who got me the blood transfusion, 4 units of blood. It sounds so stupid to say it, and trust me, this is not an ego trip when I say this, but because I was in physical good condition and my abdomen was tight when I started bleeding internally, my stomach didn't expand. This meant the usual signs weren't there, and it was hard for them to realize the full extent of the bleeding. Sandy saw something new. Something was critically wrong, and she pushed. That blood, that selfless gift from strangers, pumped life back into my failing body. It saved my life that night. I owe her everything. For years after, until she moved hospitals, we took her chocolates, a small token of gratitude for saving my life. Immediately following the transfusion, there was the surgery. One of many, as it turned out. The first one was to address the twisted intestines and the immediate internal bleeding. I was in and out of consciousness throughout this initial critical phase. The hospital became my entire world, a sterile, unforgiving landscape of beeping machines and hushed footsteps. Days bled into nights, weeks into months. I missed Christmas. I missed New Year's. My life, once vibrant and open, was now confined to the four walls of a hospital room, punctuated by the rhythm of IV drips and the constant monitoring of my vital signs. My hospitalization wasn't a matter of days or even weeks. It was 2.5 months. A significant chunk of my 15th year vanished within those sterile walls. And the first surgery, while life-saving, was only the beginning. Despite the transfusion and the initial repair, my body was in profound shock. My organs began to shut down. Imagine having blood all coagulated around your vital organs. It was a mess inside a profound internal trauma that necessitated further intervention. They had to wait until everything healed a bit more before they could go back in. So I underwent a second surgery. This one was to clean everything up, to remove the accumulated blood and debris that was suffocating my internal systems. The recovery from that was another arduous journey. Each day was a battle against weakness, nausea, and the deep fatigue that comes from such a severe ordeal. I was unable to eat much, my body simply incapable of processing solid food for a long time. The weight loss was dramatic, shocking, and deeply unsettling. When I finally got out, I had gone from a healthy 180 pounds down to a skeletal 118 pounds. I was literally a skeleton. I remember the first time I looked in the mirror after being discharged. It was the scariest thing ever. I looked at my reflection, at the hollowed out cheeks, the sharp angles of my bones, the gaunt face that stared back, and I honestly asked myself, who is that? I cried. I couldn't believe that the person looking back at me was me. It was a profound moment of disconnect, seeing a stranger in my own skin, a stark reminder of how close I had come to not existing at all. The physical transformation was a constant visible scar of the battle I had fought. Even in the midst of that intense physical and emotional recovery, a pivotal conversation took place that would ultimately shape the entire trajectory of my life. The hospital, this place of profound suffering, also became the unexpected birthplace of my career. Among the many incredible medical professionals who cared for me, two main nurses, Sandy and Alana, stood out. Sandy, of course, for her immediate life-saving action with the blood transfusion. But then there was Alana. Alana was also a model, and one day during a quiet moment in my room, she looked at me and casually said, "Oh gosh, you should model." I remember my immediate reaction. I was like, I don't want to model. My heart wasn't in that. Even then, from that hospital bed, my mind was on something else entirely. I want to be an actor, I told her firmly. Like I love film and television, I want to give this gift to other people. It sounds a bit grand, I know, especially for a kid lying in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life. But it was genuine. Throughout my long recovery, television and film became my escape, my solace. They were the only things that truly saved me from the sheer despair of missing Christmas and New Year's, of being isolated from the world. They offered a window into other lives, other realities, and they reminded me of the power of storytelling. Alana listened, and then, with an almost prophetic understanding, she said, "Well, you can segue from modeling into acting. Look, when you get out, I'm hooking you up with this modeling company I know." And she meant it. She followed through. That conversation, that unexpected twist of fate, planted a crucial seed. It gave me a tangible path, a starting point for a dream that felt impossibly far away just moments before. It was the first step on a journey I hadn't even realized was waiting for me. The physical scars from that ordeal eventually healed, but the internal transformation was far more profound and lasting. This brush with death, This stark confrontation with my own mortality at such a young age irrevocably changed my perspective on life itself. It was during those long, lonely months in the hospital that I began a deeply personal journey. I started my relationship with God. When you're faced with the end, when you've been given a second chance, you start looking for answers, for meaning beyond the tangible. My faith became a cornerstone, a source of strength and comfort that I hadn't known before. But perhaps even more significantly, the experience deepened the bond with my father. He was a single parent, raising 5 kids on his own. His life was already a demanding juggling act, filled with responsibilities and sacrifices. Yet he came to the hospital every single day. Every single day. He spent countless nights with me sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, watching over me, despite having 4 more kids waiting for him at home. The man is tough as nails, stoic strong. But in that hospital room, I saw a vulnerability in him that I had never witnessed before, a raw, protective love that transcended everything. He did that for us, for me. His unwavering presence, his quiet strength, his palpable fear for my life, forged an unbreakable connection between us. That's when our relationship truly bonded. I'm beyond grateful, overly grateful, for his immense sacrifice and unwavering love. That experience taught me the true meaning of family of unconditional love and the profound resilience of the human spirit. Years later, when I was 25, I woke up one morning and it all clicked into place. I remembered why I became an actor. It wasn't about fame or ego or anything superficial. It was about that feeling I had at 15, lying in that hospital bed, finding solace and escape in television and film. It was about wanting to give that gift to other people, to entertain, to provide a moment of joy or reflection, to put out good love and good energy into the world through my family, my faith, and my work. That's what it's about for me. It's not about anything else. The near-death experience also ingrained in me a profound respect for my health. I learned the hard way the consequences of what you put into your body. I fueled myself with food in the wrong way before, and I made myself sick. So these days, I'm all about clean living. No alcohol, eating healthy. It's a conscious choice, a daily commitment, because I never want to end up back in that hospital bed fighting for my life like that again. I've been on the bad side of it and the good side of it when it comes to how I treat my body. And now I choose the good side. Life since then has been a gift every single day. The Freakier Friday I'm working on now, and all the other roles I've had, Dawson's Creek, Gilmore Girls, One Tree Hill, they all stem from that core purpose. It's about having fun, yes, but also about remembering that deeper calling, that profound reason I was given a second chance. It's a constant reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of living it with gratitude and intention. That day, when I was 15, my life was almost extinguished. But instead of an ending, it became an unexpected beginning. It was a crucible that forged me, stripping away the trivial and revealing what truly matters, the profound love of family, the comfort of faith, and the incredible fragile gift of each breath. The world often rushes by, and we get caught up in the mundane, the noise, the perceived importance of things that are in the grand scheme fleeting. But when you've looked death in the eye, when you've heard the words "last rites" whispered over your young body, everything shifts. It taught me that life is not just a journey, but a sacred trust. It's about connection, about purpose, about the quiet acts of kindness that can save a life, like a blood transfusion from a nurse named Sandy, or a casual suggestion from a nurse named Alana that unlocks your true calling. It taught me that even in your darkest hour, there is hope, and that sometimes
the greatest transformations come from the most harrowing experiences.
So if there's one message I can share, it's this. Don't wait for a near-death experience to truly live. Cherish every moment, every breath. Be present for your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Nurture your body, your mind, your spirit. Find your purpose, whatever it may be, and pursue it not for external validation, but for the profound joy and meaning it brings to your soul and to the world around you. Because every single day is a gift, and sometimes it takes losing half your blood lying on your deathbed to truly understand how precious that gift truly is.